Yep.
Thanks. Well spotted. Thanks, Tom. Sorry, I was in the middle of the patrons. So these are the people who get involved, give of their time. Faye Allen is a director of JS Held, experts in the construction sector. She's a qualified quantity surveyor. Patrons' roles are really to get behind us, give us the exposure that we need. And our third patron who's agreed to be part of it is Zama Ngobo, who's based in South Africa and also an attorney. And then our WITBE ambassadors, you can see we've got Kenya, Tanzania, Malawi, Namibia, Ghana, the whole bang shoot. And their role that they've agreed to play is to build momentum in their countries, build a membership. We want to get women involved who are in the built environment so we can support them and guide them through the process, and we don't lose them along the way. Research is showing that we get graduates, we qualify, we go through the whole rigmarole, and then we fall out of the system due to various challenges. And WITBE wants to overcome those challenges and drive new women into the built environment, new members, and keep women in the built environment. And then we also have our knowledge champions, those WITBE members who've agreed to champion a particular theme in the app. All of you, thank you very much for your support and your time that you give to me and the leadership team in WITBE. Over to you, Liz.
Great stuff, thank you. And talking about some of the challenges that drive women out of the built environment, our speaker today is going to be stepping firmly into that space. So you'll see the shiny, happy face of Kim Tim on the screen at the moment. Kim is an experienced structural engineer with a passion for mentorship. She's recognized for her exceptional technical prowess and leadership acumen. She's garnered numerous accolades, including the prestigious 2021 Big Five Construction Awards for Women in Leadership of the Year, Middle East, Asia, and Africa, the 2019-2020 South African Professional Services Awards for Women Professional of the Year, and the 2019 CESA Award for the Mentor of the Year. She has 2 decades of experience in the consulting engineering realm. She's co-authored and authored numerous papers and articles and contributed to groundbreaking projects in innovative building design. She transitioned to academia in 2023 and is pursuing a PhD in 3D printing with concrete, and that can take you down a whole separate rabbit hole. She aims to migrate into the field of lecturing and is lecturing her first postgrad course in advanced structural concrete in May this year. It is available to industry and provides CPD points if any of you in the structures field are interested in that. And she is a mom to 2 enthusiastic boys and enjoys time in the outdoors and discovering the wonders of South Africa and beyond. And today she is going to be talking to us about finding your own space. Kim, over to you.
Thanks very much, Liz, for that glowing summary there. I hope that you guys will all enjoy the presentation today. So let me share my screen here. And Liz, if you can maybe just give me confirmation that you can see everything okay?
Yep, I can see. And if people would just put their responses and questions into the chat as we go, we'll use those to kick off the conversation at the end.
100%. So it's really nice to have the opportunity to be able to talk to you all today. I've been part of WITBE for quite a while now and always enjoy the monthly sessions. So it's actually a wonderful opportunity from my side to be able to share a little bit as well. So today I'm going to be talking quite a lot about finding your own space, working out where is the place where you fit into the system, where you feel you can contribute the most, and also where your contributions will be appreciated and valued for what they are. How do you find the space? Does it exist already, or do you need to create it? And how does that all work? So we're going to be talking initially a little bit about understanding the problem. What is the problem? How it affects us? A few stats, because I quite enjoy stats. It's probably the engineering in me. And then I'll talk you through the 4 steps that I like to use to find one's own space and how we fit in. And I'll wrap up with some concluding remarks and hopefully get, at least for the South Africans, everybody finished early enough to go enjoy their public holiday tomorrow. Right, so understanding the problem itself. This is a stock photo, but I like using it because the guys look so completely confused at the pictures that they're seeing on the screen that it's always felt appealing to me. So what is the problem? Well, right now, I'm talking to you all as a diverse team of women across many different countries. You're at different stages in your career and your lives. Let's do a quick experiment. So for those of you who've got me on a back screen somewhere and you're busy working on the side, completely understand. It's a judgment-free zone, but just hop back over to your Teams window quickly. I want to see if you guys can just briefly raise your hands if you have experienced this. And when I say raise your hands, I mean not with the cameras on, just click the raise your hand button. Well, okay, let me just give you an example. No, lost this window. Hang on half a sec. Okay, well, Liz will just have to tell me who's raising their hands. But how many of you have felt in the last week frustrated at work? Not sure what you're doing, where you're going, how it all fits in onto your plan. Is it actually even a part of your plan? How is it all working? And don't worry, I won't tell your bosses. This is a safe space. You feel free to complain.
26 and counting.
Okay,
28.
Oh, wait, no, okay. So now don't put your hands down. Okay, that's the last week. How many in the last month or so?
Okay.
Still slightly going up. What about the last year?
Okay. How many hands do we have up now? 33.
So
34.
we're sitting at least
half.
Oh, and going up still. Okay, that's wonderful. Thank you. You can go back to putting me on the back screen now. Or rather don't, but I don't mind if you do. You can see that a substantial number of people have actually experienced this. Don't worry, it is 100% completely and utterly normal. You're not weird or bizarre in any way. In fact, it's not just isolated to women having these kind of feelings of being very lost and confused. It's your male colleagues will also go through it. But there are particular additional factors that tend to apply to women in a male-dominated field like engineering, which we just experience a little bit more than our male counterparts. So if at the moment you are frustrated, wondering where to go, wondering how you got there and where you're going from now, don't panic. Okay. There have been several studies which have been done to work out what factors cause people to eventually just give up and leave engineering. Now, one of these was done by the Institute for Employment Studies in 2021. It was sponsored by Atkins, and it analyzed predominantly UK data to assess the number of engineers that were leaving the sector in the decade leading up to 2020. So it took a survey of an entire collection of engineers in 2010, and then it resurveyed in 2019 and went, right, firstly, how many of those people are still in the industry? So it ended up being 75% of the men that were in the industry in 2010 were still in the industry in 2019 on the resurvey, compared to only 42% of the women who were surveyed in 2010 compared to 2019. And that is a remarkable reduction in people. Then they went a little further and they said, right, of the people who stayed, how many of the men had uninterrupted time in the engineering field for that decade? And the answer there was in the range of about 65%, compared to the women, who only had 30 of them had uninterrupted time in engineering over that decade. So for those of you who don't really feel like doing the maths because it's Wednesday afternoon, that's 30% of the original 42%. So you're really only getting it with under 13% of the people in the industry, of women in the industry, are staying and consecutively staying in the industry in this particular study. But okay, maybe that's just a particular thing that happens in the UK. So let's talk about the US. Now, a lady called Professor Nadia Fouad, she was a psychologist at the University of Wisconsin. She also investigated this problem, and she found that about 20% of graduates at university level in America were women. Of that 20%, 10% never even entered the engineering field when they finished. But of those who did, another 27% left engineering again, which was considerably more than the equivalent male ratings. Now, for those of you who are in South Africa, it might be interesting to note that EXA does not show the same results. This is based off their numbers from their 2023 report. And you can see if you are judging from all registered professionals at EXA, so that's engineers, technologists, technicians, all professionally registered people, the total percentage of women is only around 11%, which isn't great. The UK, US, and Australia, for instance, are much closer to 16%. But South Africa is sitting at 11%, so there's opportunities for growth there. But when you look at the percentage of cancelled registrations, you found that in all of the cases, the women were actually cancelling either the same rate as the men or slightly less than the men, which is different than the other places are experiencing. But it is also possible that this is not a complete picture because it's not demonstrating any of the candidate engineers. It's primarily focusing on the professional engineers and who then cancels their professional registration. The other, I think it's pretty clear we have a problem. So why are people leaving the industry? Is it, as used to be thought, and I truly hope that not too many people do think this on this particular call today, that, oh yeah, no, women do engineering for a bit and then they will go off and have babies. So I'm hoping that's slightly too old school for everybody here. It is true, and the results I'm going to show you here are primarily from the IES survey, but Professor Fuad's survey found very similar things, just with slightly different wording. And there were people who went off to become caregivers, either for the elderly or for the children. But for most of them, those weren't the dominant reasons. And I'm going to show you a list here, and let's see if any of them look vaguely familiar to you. Stereotyping, macho cultures, unchallenged discrimination and bias, lack of flexibility, overwork, lots of overwork, expectations, lack of opportunities, lack of role models, isolation, lack of support, culture that's perceived to reward those who fit the mold of an ideal engineer. Okay, so this is a bit of a scary list and a bit of a frustrating list. And honestly, if I could wave a magic wand and make all of these things disappear, I absolutely would. But let's face it, there's not enough magic in the world to be able to make this go away just with one wave of a wand. Luckily, though, there are some of these that we, as the people who are directly on this call, are capable of actually fixing, at least in our immediate environment, especially when it comes down to these last few, the lack of role models, the isolation, the lack of support, and changing the culture. So how do we, understanding that this is a problem, create or find a space for ourselves so that we don't end up feeling that we are being pushed out of the industry as a whole? Right, then my 4-step plan. So step 1 on my 4-step plan is finding your passion, right? Before everyone gets too excited, this is a work environment we're talking about. So finding your work-related passion. Now, what I mean by that is, what is it that makes you tick? Why did you come into this career in the first place? What drove you to it, or what pulled you into it? Why did it make you excited initially? For me, I honestly joined this industry for the absolute worst reason you can possibly imagine. At the end of high school, you know, when everybody's trying to work out what they want to be, and you're filling in a million of those little multiple choice question blocks, and they plug them into a computer and it spits out that, no, you are supposed to be a driving instructor or whatever it happens to do. I found that the results of those weren't really inspiring me too much. I don't think that I should be a driving instructor because, well, frankly, my driving is not that great. And so I then went to a career counselor and I said, right, these are my problems. And he did another barrage of tests and he came back with the conclusion that my actual problem was that I didn't know enough about the different industries that were open to me. So he left me in front of his computer, which was probably a brave thing to do with a teenager, but I mostly behaved myself. And I went through all the careers that he had in his computer. And he came back a little while later and he asked, is there anything that I am finding appeals to me? And I said, well, of the options that I've been looking at, I really think that civil engineering catches my interest. It sounds not too bad. It's got a lot of interesting options. And he was horrified, absolutely horrified. He flat out told me to my face that there was no way that a woman would ever be able to do civil engineering. I should not do it. If I was in any way interested and I insisted on being interested in that particular field, then maybe I should try town planning instead. Now, I don't know if any of you have ever tried to tell a teenager that there is absolutely something that they must not do, but there is no easier way of getting them completely determined to do it. So right there and then, I decided that, damn it, I was going to be doing civil engineering come hell or high water. Now, I'm not going to pretend that petty spite is a very good way of choosing your career course. I was extremely lucky in that it ended up, once I started being civil, I learned that I absolutely love it. I like the system and the problem solving, and it just appeals to me. But I do know that that was luck as opposed to something that was a skill set. But something made you all choose this job, even if it was just somebody telling you you shouldn't do it. So why do you need to? Well, you are the one who is in charge of yourself. Nobody else is responsible for your career. Not your boss, not your colleagues, not your spouse, not your mom. I'm sure she's keen and interested, but they are not responsible for your career. In this day and age, we can't really sit in a corner somewhere and work hard and expect to have people come up with amazing opportunities for us. It just doesn't work that way. You need to have a plan and you need to be able to drive your own career to the best of your ability. So you need to work out what it is that you're doing. Even the best of bosses is going to battle to hold 20 different people's dreams and desires and things like that in their heads. You are the one who is responsible for chasing yours. Okay, great. So we need to find out what your passion is. How do you find it? Well, as I said, I was lucky in that I found that my career actually suited me, although however accidentally I fell into it. But not everybody is that fortunate. For those of you who do know exactly why you're in the industry and what you're aspiring to, then that's perfect. For those of you who don't, there are a couple of options. The easiest thing to do is to try and find a role model, someone that you can admire and look up to. Now, I know there are not enough women in the industry that role model is necessarily going to be a woman, but that's okay. Don't limit yourself to only looking for female role models. Look at the men as well. I promise that there is a lot to learn. And if you can see somebody and go, right, that person, I want to be doing that job. I want to be doing, that's where I want to be in 5 years, 10 years, maybe 15 years. It really helps to be able to formulate a structure of where you want to be around that. If that person doesn't exist, maybe try splicing two people together. I wouldn't suggest it in the real world. There are medical rules against things like that, but at least in your imagination, you can take what you like about that person's job or somebody else's job and fit them together to create your ideal role. Now, you can also ask yourself the where do I want to be in 5 years question. I know it's a cliche, but there is a reason why it's a cliche. It makes you think a little bit further than just what's the next deadline I'm chasing next week. It helps you just structure where it is that you're going to go. You can also ask people that you trust to give you honest opinions, both your strengths and your weaknesses. Don't give people grief when they tell you what your weaknesses are. I know it's hard not to be defensive, but if you understand your weakness, then that can help you phrase what works for you and formulate that into what your actual passion is. As an example, one of my weaknesses is I am extremely conflict averse. I do not do well in a situation where people are screaming and yelling. I am really not looking forward to having teenagers in my house in the next couple of years. It's going to be an experience. But while I know that that makes me feel physically ill if I'm in those situations, knowing it's a weakness enables me to work out methods of dealing with it. because in this industry, you're going to end up with those environments, and you need to be able to deal with conflict. I will say, though, as well, is that understanding that that is a weakness of mine has meant that I can also appreciate that I am an extremely good mediator, because I dislike those kind of high intense conflict situations so much that I have found an ability to be able to find the common ground between most parties in order to defuse those situations. So you can often, through your weaknesses, find strengths that you can use and exploit from there. Okay, so before I get sidetracked down, because otherwise I will still be here in 2 hours, use all of this to be able to formulate what it is that you want to do. Then you know what you want to do. What's next? Well, you need to make a plan. Okay. I promise, as a manager side, if somebody comes to me and says, right, I want to be CEO in 5 years, and then sits back and waits for me to do something, it's incredibly frustrating. I don't know how to help you. You need to give me more than that. In the same way, if you were doing a design, you would first attempt the design, and then you take it to somebody to review so that they could sit down with you and work out where you've done it right and where you've gone wrong, and then you formulate that together and end up with the right answer. You want to try and make a plan first. Yes, you want to be in this role in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time. What do you think you need to do in order to get there? Then you take it through to your managers and ask for reviews and help and their input as well. If you go empty-handed, it's less beneficial for both of you. Okay, fine. So you've made a plan. Now you need to implement it. Now, in an ideal world, this would be as easy as approaching someone like your manager and saying, right, this is my plan, getting the feedback and working out together how to implement it. And this is absolutely a good place to start if it is at all possible. But I do understand that not everybody lives in an ideal world. Maybe you don't have a manager that's very open to that kind of interaction or discussion, in which case, what is it that you do then? Well, that kind of brings me to my next slide, which is the next step. Creating a support system. So support systems are critical. It doesn't matter what field you're in, it doesn't matter what gender you are, they come in all sorts of different roles and formats and everything else, but you need a support system. So that is very much the next step after the finding your passion. So first part of the support systems, active and passive mentorships. Now, obviously a lot has been said about mentorship on WITBE before on the previous talks. Mentors, in case people hadn't gathered it by now, they're important. Having somebody there who can be a sounding board is essential. An active mentor is someone who's got a more formalized relationship with you. They're the ones who can quite literally pull you through the mud at the times when you might need a little bit of assistance. You meet on a regular or occasionally semi-regular basis, and they are invested in you. They care about you developing. Now, not all people are lucky enough to have allocated mentors to them of this sort, but sometimes it's a matter of just being as easy as approaching someone that you would like to be your mentor and saying to them, look, I don't have a mentor. I would absolutely like you to be my mentor. This is the role that I'm expecting you to fulfill. They might say no, maybe they have too many other mentees, but it is absolutely worth a shot. But mentors don't have to be the same gender as you. Sometimes it's nice if they are, but they don't have to be. Okay. Your passive mentors are a slightly more distant relationship, but also very useful. It's somebody that you can look up to and that you respect, and you can appreciate what they are doing. And occasionally you ask their opinions or you discuss things with them, but it's not quite as formulated and regular a situation. So it is somebody that you learn from without it being necessarily scripted. Surprise is if these mentors can be at the company you work. If they are, they understand the role that you're doing and the type of work that you're doing. And when things go a little bit pear-shaped at work, which it sometimes can, they have a more direct interaction so they can see exactly what's going on. Now, sometimes you have a situation where well, sometimes your mentor can assist you if your manager is not playing ball, like I mentioned earlier. Sometimes your manager is your mentor and they might not be doing either role particularly well. Not ideal, but sometimes then it is, I promise, a lot easier to go and say and organize to change your mentor than it is to change your manager. So if you change your mentor, then maybe you can get a different mentor who can then assist you with the problems that you are having with your manager. It's a side route, but it might help. Okay, talked a lot about mentoring. You don't only have to have one mentor. You can have several, you can move through them at different phases in your life. I would just suggest, though, if you have several mentors fulfilling different roles, just make sure that they are each aware of exactly what role you want them to fulfill and who the other players are. Nobody wants to feel like it's a competition between mentors. Right, so you're lucky enough to have a mentor. Great, what's next? Allies in the workplace. Okay, ladies, the built environment, despite how it sometimes feels, is not an us and them situation. Men are not the enemy here. If we treat men like the enemy, then it means they're far less likely to even try and understand what is going on. Let me give you an example. I went to a panel discussion in Dubai a couple of years ago about women in engineering. Big venue, very fancy conference. There were 5 people on the stage, and the only woman was the host. The audience was about 200 women, no men. And somewhat predictably, it went very badly. The men on the stage did their piece, and as they were talking, you could feel the resentment in the audience beginning to build, because all they saw was, yet again, here is a bunch of men telling us what we should do and how we should behave. And what happened then was, when it came to the questions and answers, they annihilated the men that were sitting on that stage. Every single woman who got an opportunity to speak on the mic took the guys apart, saying, how can you possibly pretend to understand what I'm going through or to say what a woman experiences in engineering? It really was messy and everybody was uncomfortable. They left, both the people on the stage and in the audience left that environment feeling frustrated and angry. And it was incredibly stupid, I'm not going to lie, to have a women in construction panel discussion without any women in construction. That's poor planning. But the audience did not behave well either. The problem was those men on the stage, they were trying. Every single one of those guys, they were there because they were playing a role within their own environment to try and uplift women in the construction industry and in engineering. And I guarantee you they left that meeting thinking, what even is the point? Men are absolutely not the enemy. You need to try to the best of your ability to get your colleagues to walk with you rather than fighting us. I promise that if you can show the guys that you work with what it means to be a woman in this industry, every single person that you change, even slightly, creates these ripple effects through the industry, and slowly, slowly, we can start to change the culture. Okay, but let's say you've got the allies in the workplace. What else do you need? Well, you need your peer support groups and you need your friends and family. Peer support groups are very useful. These don't necessarily need to be the people that you see on a daily basis. When I was working at AECOM, we had a group called M Circles, which 4 or 5 ladies in a team, and we all in different fields. And once a month, or occasionally once every 2 months, we used to get together and complain for about an hour. I can pretend that we were doing other stuff, but honestly, we were just complaining at each other. But it was actually really nice because we each had an opportunity to rant. We joined in each other's rants. We listened, we commiserated. And even though at no point did we ever try and solve any of the world's problems in that environment, we all left feeling a little bit more supported, feeling like there were people out there that were experiencing similar things and who actually were listening to us. And it's the sort of community that you actually need. And maybe you have this at work, maybe you have this in your group of friends. If you don't, why not start one? Even take a look at the people who are on this call. There's lots of people inside the WITBE environment who I'm sure would be quite keen to start that with other people in similar circumstances. So give it a shot. It really helps. Okay. Speaking of which, while we're talking about taking a look at people on the call, please do write your questions in. I do hope there are lots popping in. I promise there is no such thing as a stupid question. Even if it's a, oh, Kim, those are adorable kids, I'll take that too. So please do write things in. Very happy to have that. Okay, family and friends, they are extremely important. They will support you to the end of the earth, but it is a two-way street. You need to support them too. And that invariably takes me on to my next step, which is all about cultivating work-life balance, right? So how do you get work-life balance? To be able to tell you the answer to this, but honestly, I don't know. I don't think that anybody gets this right 100% of the time. So I know when my children were small, what I did was I went from, let's call it from an 8-hour, a paid 8-hour day to a paid 6-hour day, because nobody's going to pretend those are the actual hours we're working. But I dropped my hours a day so I could spend a couple of hours with my kids in the afternoon, and when I picked them up from creche, and have that time. And largely that worked for me. I was in a fortunate position enough to be able to do that with a company that understood. But despite that, I'm not going to lie to you, there were many, many days where I sat in my car outside that creche in floods of tears because I'd left work late, because I hadn't managed to finish the work that I was doing, and I desperately rushed over to the creche, and I felt like I was letting down my work colleagues and the bosses and everyone who was relying on me to finish. Rushed over to probably driving terribly, rushed over to the creche, felt like I was letting my kids down because I was picking them up late, and I was therefore a terrible mom and the worst imaginable human being. And then I knew I was going to have to work in the evening again, and then I was letting myself down because I was not having any time or any space for me to just be me. Are phenomenal about guilt tripping themselves. Not perfect. You don't have to be perfect. And this obsession of trying to do everything 100% right all the time is incredibly difficult. Cut yourself a break. Zama in last month's WITBE talk used the comment, very few of us know what we're doing. We're just trying the best we can. And it is 100% true. Even the people who look like they've got it all together, and you see the Facebook pictures of all these wonderful things and doing the work, and they're doing the family, and they're doing that. It is hard. It's something that everybody struggles with, but we keep struggling because we know it is worthwhile. Said that, there are some things that one can do to try and balance things out a little bit. So when you're making your plan, make sure the life side is also in your plan. It's one thing to create the work structure and where you want to be, but make sure life forms part of that plan. Okay, then from a work side, flexible work arrangements and family-friendly policies really, really help. Ladies, it's 2024. If your work is not capable of giving you half an hour to go pick up your kids from school, then you need to have a strongly worded discussion with them. We are in an environment where people can afford to be more flexible, whether it's work from home or hybrid or flexible hours or whatever it is. There are ways and means that work can show you that they actually support what you're trying to achieve. Communication. I don't care who you're communicating with, whether it's part of the work or whether it's part of the life side of it. Please, because half the time the frustrations come up because one hasn't communicated with your partner when you're going to be leaving, or that you're going to be at this thing or that thing. The communication, the better you are at communication, practicing it, the clearer everything becomes. So if things don't go according to plan, you can do it. But having said that, I mentioned make sure the life side is in your plan. try and stick to the plan. If you're intending to leave at X hour, try and leave at X hour. Don't make it 5 past or 10 past or 15 past. Because the second you start getting on that kind of slippery slope, it gets very, very easy to fall quite far and quite fast a lot further. Try to stick to the plan. So, cultivating work-life balance, very important. I would
We have about
suggest
5 minutes, just flying the flag there.
Oh dear. Okay, I better talk really quickly because I've got a little bit more than I want to do. Okay, so on this particular slide, go look at this cartoon. There's a link in the WITBE app. I'll put it on the other. It's a great cartoon. Check it out. Wonderful. That's all I need to say there. Brilliant. Okay, next thing I'm just going to do, despite all of this that we are trying to do, we still end up suffering from imposter syndrome. Okay, what is imposter syndrome? Well, I like this definition. Condition of feeling anxious and not experiencing success internally despite being high performing in other external objective ways. Results in people feeling like a fraud or phony, doubting their own abilities. This is a massive problem for women, and far more so for women than men in the industry. There have been a million studies. This one happens to be one that was done in Pakistani medical students, but in all of them you can see as you track through it that women invariably are sitting there far higher percentages going, yes, I worry that people are going to find out I'm not as bright and capable as they think I am. Or maybe I've got all of this self-doubt hanging around. How is it all affecting? A lot of us, and I don't think we have time, but I was going to ask everybody to put their hands up for this one as well. But understand that I strongly suspect that probably 75% of you at least have suffered from imposter syndrome or are currently. Certainly I have. There's lots of literature on what it means and different forms of it. I can tell you here that I typically form the part of the perfectionist one. Not that I am a perfectionist in many ways, but I do set impossibly high expectations. And then when I fail at those, then I get very frustrated at myself. And I do tend to, if I'm going into a meeting, I will compulsively run through every variation that conversation can go to try and cover each and every one of them so I'm prepared. Imposter syndrome is something that's very real and most people experience it, men and women, albeit women slightly more. So what can we do about it? Well, I'm honestly going to skip the slide, I think, because I don't really have time. This is a commonly stated sentence. It's not strictly true. They have done studies on it, but it's not nearly as bad as this. Typically speaking, you end up with men are prepared to apply for a job when they hit about 50% of the qualifications, but women start ticking in at about 56, 58% as well. So it's not all that different, but certainly men are far more likely to exaggerate their own or overestimate their own competence than women are. Okay, what do? If you are suffering, talk to your mentors, right? It really, really helps to be able to talk to someone you can trust who will give you an honest opinion. Okay. Acknowledge your wins and capabilities. I know it's hard. It's other people's wins look better and more impressive than yours, but acknowledge what you have managed to achieve. Admit you don't know anything. Well, you don't know everything, but acknowledge what you do. Okay. Thinking. It's very easy to get caught up on the negative thinking. Oh, remember that mistake I said in that meeting last Tuesday, and now I can't sleep because I'm wondering what everybody thought. They've all forgotten it anyway. Acknowledge the mistakes, understand them, but also acknowledge the positive things that you achieved in that same meeting, for instance. And then seek additional help. Guys, mental health is a thing. There are many professionals out there. There is nothing wrong or embarrassing about asking for help. Please do so. It's a doctor like any other. If you need to chat to someone, there are many, many people who can. It isn't just about us, though. Often you will find that your colleagues will also be suffering from the same thing. So you can do very similar things when there are other people in your environment which can help them as well. Pay attention to your words and actions and your tone, because they have a tendency to be hypersensitive to everything and therefore might interpret layers of meaning to words that you really didn't intend initially. encourage collaboration, talking to each other. It gives you a much better, more comfort in terms of your interaction if you are talking. Help practice confidence, acknowledge the wins, acknowledge what people have achieved, and limit comparisons to other people. This is not something about where there's space for all of us. We don't need to try and compete against each other because there is plenty of space in this world for us all. So it's only by working on our own confidence and managing to get to the point where we are comfortable and we are secure in our own knowledge will we be actually able to claim the space that we are working in, even once we've got there. So we absolutely need to work on our confidence. Okay, so I've been talking to you for quite a long time now. Let me summarize it a little bit. We have a problem with women leaving the industry because of a wide range of options. Some of them are soft issues, which we can actually fix. So we need to be able to focus on making a plan, implementing that plan, creating our support system around us, and from there, making sure you have your work-life balance and working on your confidence, beating that imposter syndrome. Hopefully this together makes our environment a little bit better. Now, I just want to put in here on my last concluding notes, I've spoken about the problem in the industry with lots of people leaving. But I've mentored a lot of people. And sometimes you will find, you try a bunch of things and you will discover that in fact, the space that you want to occupy isn't in this industry, it's somewhere else. And you have right now a set of amazing problem-solving skills, which honestly are a benefit to no matter which industry you happen to be working in. If you reach that point, there actually is nothing wrong with leaving and working in a different industry. That's absolutely fine. The really, really important thing that we are trying to work for here is that you have the ability to choose whether you want to be staying in engineering and working in engineering or going and working somewhere else, rather than feeling that you're being coerced or forced out of engineering as a result of the environment that you're in. Okay, that is it for me.
Thanks, Kim.
Speed up.
Thanks so much. There are two questions I'm going to jump straight in with that have come out in the chat. Thank you so much. You can see all the applause leaving in there. If you want to just drop your presentation down, it gives people a bit more, I can see people on the screen. But we have two to kick off with. One was from Zintle, who says, can you give us some concrete ideas about how you take men through the journey as a woman to sort of seed that male allyship? How can you open men's eyes to our experience as women?
So honestly, I find that it's a matter of communicating, and that's an easy thing to say and a hard thing to do. But you will find that a lot of the men that you're working with, they will be slightly oblivious to the fact that you're having any different challenges to them. They just assume that everybody is exactly like them because we are inherently all selfish people, and that's our sort of default assumption. So I think by raising it, if you are in an environment where somebody is making sexist comments, or for instance, I was in a meeting where I was very much the senior engineer and I brought a junior guy on who was going to be running the project, and I was just there to do the handover for him. And because I was the only woman at the table and he was a guy, the contractors and the project managers insisted on talking to him, and then he kept swiveling his head around to look at me so that I could reply. And when we left that meeting, now I didn't call them on it at the time, but when we left that meeting, he brought it up and said, I cannot believe that that was the environment, that is this normal? And we had a very, very good discussion about that and exactly when that happens and how it happens and what he can do in the future to try and stop that from happening as well.
That's a fantastic example. Yeah. I would strongly encourage people to look at that cartoon that you shared, because that, I think, a huge number of women relate to 100%. And just finding ways to make men aware of that mental load is a phenomenal starting place. The second question was, love the advice about work-life balance, but how do you deal with putting your boundaries in and trying to create that work-life balance yourself when many people around you are not doing the same, and particularly when there are women, for instance, who are prepared to stay until midnight, work through their lunch hour, carry, you kind of, how do you defend that space?
It's hard. It's very hard. It's a culture thing. You have to try and change the culture, because when it's just you that's leaving early, or I say early, I mean leaving at the designated time as opposed to staying late, it is very difficult. Sometimes it's a matter of educating people in terms of, I mean, I know a lot of companies have wellness moments and safety moments and things like that. Introducing topics like work-life balance and things help. Discussing with people, even the senior people, saying, look, I am experiencing this problem. I need to go. It's not that I'm not dedicated, but, the expectations are going to be different. This isn't healthy for the general staff to be able to do that. Now, engineering is one that uses and abuses its staff as an industry, makes them work many, many hours too late. And I don't have all the answers. The only way I can do it is by saying it must come from the top down as well. So you need to try and convince the bosses, the managers, and those people to encourage a matter of work-life balance in their staff. I've lost you. I think you're muted, Liz.
You're muted, Liz.
Sorry, I was blocking out a background noise here. Semester just commented, which I think is a very valid thing. The work-life balance thing is also cyclical to some extent. There are periods in your life when you are willing to put in a lot more, and you are able to put in a lot more because your life circumstances
absolutely
equip you to do that. And there are other times when you need to take advantage of the gaps to do other things. But I think the overall interesting challenge then is to not have the moments when you're enforcing the work-life balance count against you when somebody else isn't, or when somebody else is in the other point of the cycle. Both those things, trying to find a space for both of those to happen. Shelley, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I think if you look at what we've got on the WITBE app, everyone that's on it, please start going through the collaboration tools and the training tools, because there's a model on there that is absolutely been my saving grace, called the SCARF model. And that will teach you how to handle these kinds of things. So the SCARF model is there. It's a 90-second video. There's an explanation for it, but very simply it stands for S is for now I've forgotten the acronym. C is for certainty, A is for autonomy, R is for relatedness, and F is for fairness. And applying this when you're having a conversation with a male mentor or manager it's magic. So really that app is there with lots of information on it, not just to share your experiences and to ask questions, but there are tools of collaboration on there that you should study, you should learn, and you should apply, and you should share the results of that application and encourage other women to use them. That's why they're there. So please look at that SCARF model, but there are others there that will answer that question as well.
Thanks, Shell. So everybody, we've got only 2 minutes left. If anybody else has another question to ask, we can jump into maybe one last question, but please carry on the conversation in the app. So if there are things that occur to you, I mean, I'm particularly interested in, if we look at the 4 things that Kim went through, finding your passion. Have you found your passion within your industry? Have you found that niche, that thing, that part of your job that makes your heart sing, that makes you lose track of time, that when you finish it, you feel completely fulfilled and satisfied, and you think, yes, this is why I'm here. This is what I love. Have you found that thing? And if you haven't found that thing, talk to people in the app about how they found that thing, because that lights the fire, that keeps you engaged. That's the thing that makes it worth doing all the other hard work. Support network. Which part of that support network that Kim's spoken about is the most useful for you? Is it your peer groups? Is it your external environment that keeps you sane and gives you a complete, change of headspace? Is it the male allies that you've managed to find? What in the support network is really working for you? what are the challenges or the wins in the work-life balance? And then I think you can take it as a read that every single person on this call knows what imposter syndrome is all about. What are the things that help you deal with that? Because that is just, yeah, that stat about looking at a job spec and going, oh, I don't have everything, versus your male mate next door going, yeah, I've got half that stuff. I'm going to, what on? Give it a go. It is a definite. Everybody on the call, we ended up with how many? Can you pop your cameras all on, please? We need to take our little end of call chat, our picture. We'd love to see as many of your faces as we possibly can. Hi, Samista, Mabasa, Mashni, Lukoza, Taylor, Paula.
Keep going, cameras.
An unknown user. Cameras on, cameras on, cameras on. Let's see you all.
Hi, Kanisa. Nice to see you again. I'm Marshni.
Oh,
Right, some more,
fine
please.
collection of ladies, I must say.
Yes.
Wonderful to see you all.
Lots of offices and, yeah, interesting environments in the background there. Great stuff. Thanks so much for everybody who attended. We got 76 still right onto the very end, which is great going. I don't think we get, I mean, we get regular attendance in those kinds of numbers, which is phenomenal.
Yeah.
This will be available in the app later, as are all those other fantastic presentations that we've had. So, yeah, get yourself in there, get yourself active and enjoy. And we'll see you next time round.
And before
Thank you.
close off, next month we've got President Rafilwe Buthelezi. It's going to be an eye-opener. She's President-elect of the African Federation of Engineers, so please join us for that. Bye, everyone.
Right. Bye. Bye all.
Bye.
Thanks, Kim.
Bye.
Bye.